Case study 101. But the hand of him who is going to betray me is with mine on the table. The Son of Man will go as it has been decreed, but woe to that man who betrays him. Gospel of Luke 22:22. Art is never finished. Observation and reinterpretation. Leonardo da Vinci interests me because his work connects art, science, and observation. He used drawing to study the body, movement, nature, machines, and proportion. This research looks at how his work has been preserved, copied, and represented. I am interested in what changes when a fragile artwork becomes a print or immersive experience. Da Vinci IO, observation, reinterpretation, and the mechanics of genius. Make the image look like it's an oil painting, with parts of the paint peeling away, revealing a city concrete wall underneath. These three images show the development of an AL-generated idea based on Leonardo da Vinci being pulled into a modern digital world. I wanted the image to feel like an old oil painting, but also show the disruption of contemporary media. The candlelit hall, confused expression, and dark background create a serious Renaissance atmosphere, while the smartphone breaks that mood completely. The phone advert for a fast food restaurant called The Last Supper turns the original religious subject into something commercial and disposable. This contrast helped me explore how famous artworks are repeatedly reinterpreted, copied, and reused through modern technology. The final image adds peeling paint and exposed concrete, making the work feel damaged, unstable, and caught between preservation, digital culture, and advertising. I realized that I am familiar with Leonardo's work through copies, memes, adverts, and parodies. Images like the Mona Lisa and Vitruvian Man have been reused so often that they almost exist separately from the original artworks. This makes them harder to analyze clearly, because I am not only looking at Leonardo's intentions, I am also looking through years of popular culture, humor, imitation, and digital distortion. Artist and investigator. Leonardo's notebooks show thinking through intense observation. His drawings are not studies for paintings. They question, test, and discover the natural world. It shows that ideas develop through observation, mistakes, and repeated testing. Leonardo used bronze casting to study the body. By injecting molten wax into the ventricles of an ox brain, he created a three-dimensional map of an internal space that could not normally be seen. His 1489 skull studies treated the head almost like a measured structure. He used a grid to map the skull, with lines crossing through the maxilla and frontal sinuses. These points met at the optic chiasm. Leonardo called this area the senso comune, where the senses were gathered and turned into thought. Leonardo moved away from the medieval idea that the body could be explained through simple layers. He wanted direct evidence. To understand movement in life, he had to look inside the body itself. This meant anatomy became physical and sometimes violent. In one test, a shoe heel was pushed into the spinal cord of a frog where it joined the skull. The frog died immediately, which suggested the head controlled life and movement, even though the heart continued to beat. For Leonardo, the body was not just flesh. It worked like architecture, with structure, connection, and function. Leonardo's anatomy studies were not only about recording the body, they became a way of understanding emotion. He moved away from older ideas and placed the brain at the center of perception and life. He saw the brain ventricles as the place where sensory information joined with the soul. He called this the sensus communis. This changed how he understood the human face. His earlier portraits do not show the same biological depth. In later works, thick layers of paint soften the edge between body, atmosphere, and expression. His study of optics helped him create more complex human emotion. This development begins with a simple hand-drawn spacecraft study, placed onto aged paper to connect it with Leonardo's notebook drawings. I wanted the image to feel like a strange invention, somewhere between a Renaissance machine sketch and a modern UFO. The worn paper, stains, and torn edges make the object feel like an old technical drawing that has been uncovered or preserved. I moved the image away from the archive surface and placed it into a more cinematic space scene. The craft becomes active rather than just observed. The light beam, mountains, moon, and earth shift the drawing into science fiction, while the recording marks suggest surveillance or found footage. This helped me test how an old drawing style can be pushed into a modern visual language without losing the sense of handmade construction. Body and space. The Vitruvian Man connects the body with geometry. Leonardo uses the human figure as a measuring structure, placed inside a circle and a square. The drawing is small, but the idea is larger. It links anatomy, proportion, architecture, and design. This development uses Leonardo's Vitruvian Man as a starting point, but changes the image through color, texture, and digital layering. I tested two directions. One version keeps the aged paper surface, making the figure feel like a damaged historical document. The torn surface and darker tones suggest preservation, decay, and the fragility of old knowledge. The second version moves the image away from archive material and into a more cosmic space. The purple background makes the body feel suspended between anatomy, geometry, and the universe. By repeating and recoloring the figure, I began to see the drawing less as a fixed Renaissance study and more as an image that can be transmitted, altered, and reinterpreted through digital tools. Leonardo used hands as a way of showing thought, emotion, and narrative. In The Last Supper, the gestures do not just decorate the scene, they help tell the story. Each hand points, reaches, refuses, or reacts, making the moment feel alive and psychologically tense. His studies of anatomy helped him understand how the hand worked beneath the surface. By observing bones, tendons, and movement, he could make gestures feel accurate but also expressive. The scientific study became a foundation for storytelling. What begins as careful observation becomes emotional communication. The moment of betrayal. The Last Supper shows the moment Jesus reveals that one disciple will betray him. Leonardo makes the scene active. Each disciple reacts differently. The subject is religious, but the impact comes from human emotion, gesture, and tension. Leonardo's Last Supper feels different from earlier versions because he uses perspective to place the viewer inside the room. Many older depictions show the scene as a flat, religious image, with the figures arranged in a line or around a symbolic table. They feel more decorative and icon-like. The space does not behave like a real room. Leonardo makes the architecture part of the story. The ceiling, walls, and table all pull towards a single vanishing point behind Jesus. This makes him the visual center before the viewer even reads the figures. The perspective gives the scene order, but the gestures and reactions create tension. It turns the Last Supper from a fixed religious symbol into a believable human moment. Mathematics form the structural bone of the paint. Leonardo formulates the numeric proportion as an ordering principle, 12, 6, 4, 3. He discovers this pattern in musical ratios. The Pythagorean intervals of the perfect fourth and the octave govern the study. 12 apostles divide into 4 groups of 3. The central beam ceiling shares the same proportional ratio. Optical space dictates the placement of the human figure. Some interpretations suggest that the viewpoint in The Last Supper is not only directed towards the viewer, but also across the refectory towards the opposite wall. This changes how the painting can be read. Jesus is not isolated inside one image. His position appears to face the crucifixion fresco at the other end of the room, linking the meal directly to his death. I wanted to test this by placing the viewer back into the space of the refectory. The silhouettes show how people interrupt the line of sight. They become part of the image, standing between the Last Supper and the crucifixion. This helped me think about the painting less as a flat image and more as part of an architectural narrative where the room, the viewer, and the 2 wall paintings work together. Giovanni Maria Palla suggested that the hands and bread in The Last Supper could be read as musical notes. When the pattern is read from left to right, it becomes chaotic. When read from right to left, it forms a more mournful requiem. This interests me because Leonardo often wrote his private notebooks backwards. It leaves open the possibility that the painting may also contain a backward structure. The image can therefore be read not only as a scene, but as a hidden arrangement of sound, gesture, and meaning. Small details in The Last Supper remain open to different readings. The spilled salt near Judas suggests bad luck and betrayal. It turns a minor object on the table into a warning sign. The fish is more uncertain. Some readings connect it to an eel, which sounds close to indoctrination in Italian. Others read it as herring, which links more closely to denial. The pomegranate also carries symbolic weight. It appears as a repeated sign of sacrificial blood. Preceding generations relied on physical isolation. Earlier Florentine refectories placed Judas alone on the near side of the table. Leonardo pushed all 13 figures to the far side. He collapsed the physical boundary. The isolation is social. The isolation is no longer spatial. The isolation is entirely psychological. Santa Maria delle Grazie receives around 400,000 visitors each year. The room that protects the Last Supper also threatens it. Each visitor brings heat, movement, and pollution into a fragile space. Filters and airlocks are used to separate the painting from the outside world. The room becomes controlled, almost sealed off from the city around it. The painting now sits at the end of a restricted corridor. It is no longer just viewed as an artwork, but protected like a damaged historical object still at risk. Human presence becomes part of the damage. The act of looking is not passive. Visitors breathe into the room and slowly change the conditions around the painting. Data shows that a group of 30 people can alter the room's carbon isotope ratio almost immediately. Metabolic emissions, including ammonia, continue to rise from opening to closing. The painting is damaged not only by age, but by the attention placed upon it. Observation becomes another form of decay. Traditional isolation. Andrea del Castagno places Judas on the near side of the table. The betrayer is separated from the 11 faithful followers. The figures sit upright in contained individual spaces. The composition remains static. Deliberate integration. Leonardo breaks tradition to create narrative tension. Judas moves to the far side of the table. The figures overlap and interact violently. Symmetry combines with deep psychological movement. The viewer is pulled directly toward the calm center. Art is never finished, only abandoned.